to A Well-Designed Business. My name is LuAnn and Laura, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company WindowWorks from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to A Well-Designed Business. Maybe you've wondered before about whether or not you should participate in a show house, wondering if it's worth the time, wondering if it's worth the financial investment, wondering how do you make sure it's a success, and how do you make the most out of it from a marketing standpoint? And finally, what is the process like? Well, my guest today, Laura Hodges, recently participated in Southern Living Idea House. And if you're like me, not having heard of this type of show house before compared to other typical show houses, you're going to be surprised. Here it is, spoiler alert. Laura didn't design a room. She designed the entire house. This was intense and complex. And you will learn today how she and her team carried out a whole slew of other responsibilities throughout the process. If you've wondered what it takes to do a show house as well as how to maximize the opportunity from it, Laura is here to share her lessons. And before we get to it, I want to thank our show sponsor, Kravet. Have you heard? The majority of Kravet Inc.'s products are in stock and ready to ship within days. Order your favorite patterns from Kravet's exclusive in-stock collections as well as their modern luxe line. Keep your design projects on track with Kravet Inc. and order memos at kravet.com. And jot down this code, AWDB10. You can use this code at checkout one time for 10% off any one order of Kravet fabric wallpaper or trim. So that's the whole cart at checkout, okay? As long as it's a Kravet brand fabric wallpaper or trim. AWDB10. All right, let's hear what Laura Hodges has to say about what it takes to do a show house with a major entity like Southern Living. Hey, Laura, thanks so much for joining me on A Well-Designed Business today.
Hi, LuAnn. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
I just told you off air. I'm like, how did it take this long to get you on the show? Just like, what?
Well, I've been listening for years, so I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, we met each other years ago. It would have
did,
probably been at High Point,
Yep,
right?
Yep,
Right?
Yep, yep.
Yeah. When I brought the book out.
Yep.
Yeah. So we're like going 7 years ago. And that's the thing. And I always see you at High Point. I always catch your eye. We get to say hello here quick in there. And it's so funny because I just have really enjoyed watching you over the years, just like grow your business.
Thank you.
I mean, it's like watching a flower blossom. I mean, I know it sounds like crazy, but it's what it feels like when I'm like, oh my God, look what Laura's doing now. Look what Laura's doing now. Like, it's so awesome. And you know what it always says to me is that you're running a smart business.
I appreciate that. Thank you,
Right.
Especially from you. You're all about the business and I hear it all the time and I love it. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, no, because, it's funny because, there's a thing about getting lucky, right? People are like, oh, I was in the right place, the right time. And, oh, I got lucky. I got asked to do this, blah, blah, blah. And others think of it as that person is lucky. That person got lucky. And what I know is, and I've said it a gabillion times on the show, you have to be prepared to get lucky, because what happens is there is luck. Something happens. We're at a cocktail party. We meet an editor. We're at a business event. We meet somebody. And that person might see something in us or think of an opportunity for us and offer it to us. So there's the luck part, right? Like, that's a little luck part.
Absolutely.
I get that.
Absolutely.
But when we go to actually have the next conversation where we start to get vetted, can we do this? Is this really an opportunity? If we don't have the chops, we either might still be able to plow through and do it, but then we don't do it well. We might do it good enough, but we don't do it well or exceptional. And then we don't get the next opportunity. They're like, oh, great person, but not a lot there. Don't call the next time. But when we get that lucky moment and we have the business foundation and we have those, you know, principles on lock, that's when we can shine in the luck. And I feel like that's what I'm watching you do.
Well, I mean, I agree. I do think that having a degree, having some experience and all those sort of things, I still finished school though and was just like, what am I doing? Right. Like, and I interned for somebody and I still was like, oh gosh, what am I doing? And eventually, some part of it is that you have to just jump in and do it
Yes.
and fake it till you make it, as they say. But having some sense of confidence and having some experience to sort of lean back on, then yeah, when somebody offers you something and you can hopefully have the confidence to say yes, and then you just kind of figure it out. I had a designer tell me right when I was starting out, he said, never turn down an experience because you think you're going to fail. Just
Mm.
get help.
Yes.
Get the because getting that look part, you
Yeah,
can't ever anticipate and you can't
that's right.
control it, right? So
Right.
when you get that lucky moment, jump on it and figure out the rest later.
You know what? And I love that, but it's so funny because I have 2 chairman of the board clients right now that each one is in the middle of a great opportunity and literally said to me, this listen, she's not a brand new business person, has done something but she literally said to me, this is a little beyond my scope right here. She said, but it's such a great opportunity. It's a community that I'm in. And if I do a good job in this community and I end up making this house wonderful and beautiful, it's going to result in other things. She said, but I actually am a little concerned because the scale of it is much larger than I've ever managed before. And she knows the stakes are high. And so, like, that's part of the chairman of the board. It's like, I go and find my people to help you. And I'm like, how would you feel about this arrangement? Would that be okay with you? And she was like, yes. And so I've paired somebody to mentor her through that. It's her project, her thing. And it's going to pay in spades because now she'll know going forward. And so I love that. And the same thing with my other chairman of the board. The opportunity is on the table yet, but I'm like, oh, that's commercial. Like, you're brand new. You don't know health laws. You don't know codes. I'm like, okay, I got some people. We'll get them on the team with you. You know what I mean? But that's it. You have to be willing to say, what do I don't know? But your point, to combine your confidence to do it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and what you're talking about with the chairman of the board, that sounds amazing. To have somebody to be able to kind of bounce ideas off and to have them say, did you think about this? Did you consider this? Here's the responsible, not emotional,
Yeah.
things to consider when you're maybe going to take this opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
huge. Yeah.
That's because that's what it is. It's like I listen, I have multiple coaches. You know what I mean? It's like you need that other person. Like, here's where you could shine. Here's your gaps. Here's some ideas to mitigate them. And here's the where it's going to be bumpy and are you willing to, go through it, right?
Yeah.
And here's where
Yeah.
it's going to be easy for you. Let's just like lean in there, right?
Yep. Yep.
So I love that. So here's the thing. I might live under an interior design rock, which apparently I do, because even though I follow you, so here's what it is. So do I, read all. As soon as it's like, it's good enough for me to know that you're doing a show house. I'm like, yay. Oh, and you got a cover. Yay. Those are the things that I know and I pick up. But like, do I like go to the magazine? Like, no, because you know me. I don't care about the pretty. I love that you guys do beautiful things. I just want to make sure you make money doing it. So I learned this morning that the Southern Living Idea House that you did is a show house where you do the whole house, one designer, interior and exterior. And when you told me that a couple of minutes ago off air, I'm like, stop talking. Let's just stop. We're going to do that right on air. I've never heard of this idea before. And I'm just like, yeah, probably the only one. Okay. But
Hmm.
that's such an unusual opportunity. And I'm thinking, I want to know, like, my brain is already like, why in the magazine one person? Like, I'm like on a
Hmm.
business side, like, where's that? So tell me about the opportunity. Tell me what you thought about it. Tell me what you learned from it. What was hard, what was easy. I have to know all of it.
Yes. Oh my gosh, there's so much. And I will tell you that throughout the entire process, there was never a second that I questioned my decision to do it. right?
Oh,
So like I'm
nice.
kind of like once I make the decision to jump in, I'm in, right?
That's it.
And it's just like you just kind of have to say this is happening and we're doing this
The
because
train has left the station.
it's a beast. So anyways, it was an amazing experience all the way through. It was a team effort all the way through. So they do hire architects. So Southern Living Magazine is fantastic. They're uh, um, headed by Sid, who is the editor in chief. He's amazing. And he called me or, sent me a DM, I think it was through Instagram or something like that, and kind of said, "Hey, I have an opportunity for you. Do you want to jump on a Zoom call?" And I said, "Of course." I actually hadn't had anything at the time published in Southern Living. But he and I had kind of like, chatted a few times here and there through Instagram. And so we jump on this call and he says, "Oh, we do the Idea House every year." And I wanted to kind of see, and like you, I knew about it. But I just thought of it as a show house, right? Just
Yeah,
like
like
everybody has,
90
there's a lot of show
designers in there.
houses. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. And so he said, "Okay, well," and I said, "Great, what room?"
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, Vinny, what's a podcast? You're like, what
Sure.
room? He's like,
Yeah, yeah.
sweetie, the whole
So
room,
so
all
he
the
says
rooms.
he says he says it's actually the whole house. And yeah, like you, it took me a second to be
Like,
like,
wait, what?
so many questions. I have so many questions. What?
You got to go to
You know,
YouTube and watch
and
more.
it's a new build. It's a new build,
Oh,
right? So it's
whoa.
and any designer out there knows what I mean when it's like when I stress the new build part of it, because if the house is already there, you're at best renovating, right? And
Yes.
renovating, there's so many things that are already there, decisions that have already
You
been
could go
made.
in and just take your measurements, start there, right? Like, like just get to work,
Right,
right?
right.
That
And
rug
so
is ugly.
there's
Let's get a
less,
new
there's
one.
yes, yeah, exactly. So in this case, amazingly, they had really, really fantastic architects on this. Lake and Land Studios. They are based in Mississippi, and they were sort of the beginning of the process, right? So they designed all of the architecture of the entire house, obviously, and then they did all the grounds, and they decided which way the house is going to face and what vistas you're going to get from what. So I mean, it was really, really very thoughtful from the beginning. And so Mary and Pat Hatcliffe, Patrick, they owned the land already.
Mm,
So with show houses, oftentimes, there's a developer involved or there's other types of things, because essentially you're building a spec house,
yeah,
right? You're building
right.
a house for somebody, because the intention for this house was for it to be sold,
Oh,
right? And so, Mary and Patrick took the investment of building the entire house, right? And so I was the lucky one in the whole situation. I would say, because there's a financial investment for us to do it, to take on the project and to all that kind of thing. But they're the ones who really were like on the hook for this massive undertaking of a house, right? So they built that thing from literally the ground up, and
okay.
they were taking down trees to build this house. I mean, it was quite like, this is where the house is going to
It's a
go, and
big
we're going to
deal,
build a house,
not
right?
like just plop
And
it up.
so, yeah, so by the time they brought me in, luckily it was still very, very early on. Thank you, Sid. And so we, as a design firm, worked very closely with the architect on everything, from windows to, the orientation of the rooms and layout of the rooms, interior layout. So it wasn't just like, okay, here's a show house,
Make the
just
best of it.
decorate this room that already exists. Here you can change out some of the crown molding, or you can move a doorway, that kind of thing. There was none of that. Like from day one, we were like, "Oh, I think this bathroom's a little bit too small. Can we steal some from the closet?" And then we'd go back to the architect and they'd rework it and say, "Oh yeah,
Wow.
we can, but we can't do that. That's going to change, the facade of the front or the back or whatever it is." And we
Yeah.
were involved, all the way from as early on as we possibly could be, which was a huge, huge benefit, I think, to us as the designers, because then we could, there's no compromise, to the design all the way through. We're like, yeah, we knew that from the beginning, so that's cool. We'll work with that in the
Wow.
design planning. And then yeah, then it was just everything, everything after that. I mean, any designer knows when you are doing a new build house, there's a lot of decisions to be made, and we worked with the architects on, exterior paint colors and materials, and even everything. So there's a house itself, and then there's also a separate structure that we called the party barn. So it was actually like a whole other little almost like it could have been a pool house, I suppose you could say, but it's a pretty big pool house. There is a huge pool, and then there's all the decking, on the front and the back of the house. And so there's all these, oh gosh, so much to tell you. Interrupt me whenever I'm saying too much. So Southern Living has they have a custom home builder program. And so within that program, they have a lot of built-in partnerships. Some of them are built into the magazine, and some of them are more like, oh, we do the idea house every year. So you have, Sherwin-Williams is usually the paint partner, and James Hardy for siding, and Regina Andrew, they usually do the interior lighting, and
Mm.
then so there's a lot of different partnerships that go throughout the whole house. Unfortunately, there weren't that many for the interior. Most of the partnerships are to do with the structure of the house, and so we had to work within those with those partners on all of those decisions from the design standpoint. But then when it came to the interiors, there's no furniture sponsor. There's the hardwired lighting and the all the portable lighting, lamps and that sort of thing, always Regina Andrew. But the rest of it, rugs, decor, window treatments, furniture, we had to go out and negotiate all of those relationships.
Whoa.
And so not only are you designing this entire, 6,000 square foot house with a party barn, but then you're also having to negotiate all of those relationships to try to get as much as possible donated. So there's some relationships that were kind of like, oh, this person worked with us before, so here's the list of people that you might want to consider. So like Lee Industries, for instance, we love Lee because they're, part of the Sustainable Furnishings Council. I'm a brand
Mm.
ambassador for them, and sustainability is a big part of our firm. So I was like, fantastic, so glad that Lee has done this before, and if they want to do it again, then that's amazing, because we absolutely could do all the sofas, the bed for the primary bedroom. Like, we can really make use of a lot of their products, and we would anyway. So it was
Right.
a great partnership. And then we worked with the Nashville rug gallery for for lots of vintage rugs throughout the house, which I
Mm.
love because we always use vintage rugs anyway. So it was great not to have to compromise any of our design aesthetic based on these partnerships that we had to negotiate. But it wasn't like, hey, can you donate one rug? It was like, hey, can you
Yeah.
donate like 8 or 10 or 12 or maybe even 15 rugs, because
Right.
there's so many rooms.
Yes.
So many rooms. So I'll let you ask a question now, because
Yeah,
I could just
no.
talk
So
about
like,
this all day long.
yeah, no, no. I love, first of all, your passion for it. I think it's awesome. And what an accomplishment. And I can hear how much work has gone into it. Right. But like, I am kind of like a little unclear.
Hmm.
So for example, yes. Okay. So normal show house, right? Normal show house, you are going to your window treatment vendor and you're saying, hey, can you do drapes for one room? And I'm looking at you going, yes, one room, Laura, one room coming up. And there's been times when a designer has asked WindowWorks to do that and it's been $1,000, and it's times that it's been $10,000, right? The answer is yes, though. The answer is always yes. But I'm not looking at, can you do window treatments for free because you're my window treatment person for an entire home? And so my brain is just like, how is that? What I want to understand is there must be some ROI. What is I'm missing right now? The business concept. Now we're going to go off of like your ROI
Yes.
is different, but like
Yes.
I'm literally missing the business through line on this, because I feel like, yes, it's a lot to coordinate 25 designers for a show house, but at the same time, every one of those 25 designers has their relationships and is not asking for tens and 20s and 30s and 40s and 50 thousands of dollars worth of product. So why is it set up like that? And is there any, like, what if you couldn't get a window treatment vendor? Like,
Mm.
are you
Couldn't.
buying that? You couldn't. Okay.
I mean,
So
for a very long time we couldn't.
Okay, so are you
Very
buying that, or is
difficult.
at some point it go back to the couple that owns the house and say, "Look, sweetie, you got to buy drapes because the room has to have drapes because otherwise this isn't going to be photo worthy." Like,
Hmm.
how does that stick point work?
So there is a stipend that we received from Southern Living magazine to
Okay,
purchase furniture for the house. It
okay,
is so small. They're a magazine, right? They're not, there's a business, right? So
yes,
the expectation is that we figure out a way to do as much as possible through loaning, donating, because Lee actually donates all the furniture. I mean, loans the furniture. They're
Okay,
not
so they're going to
donating it,
take
right?
it
So they're
back.
going to get it back as
Great.
long as we're not doing like a COM on it. They were willing to loan it to
Perfect.
us. And I
I like
will
that.
say that this house sold 99% furnished.
Oh, because once the owners saw it, they're like, we'll take all of that.
Yeah, which was
Nice.
amazing, right? And
Yes.
so, I was happy not to have to take it all apart
Yes.
from a personal standpoint because I loved how it looked, obviously. So
Yes.
I was like, I
Yes.
don't want to
Yes.
take it apart.
Yeah, it's
So
like
I
a
was
work
really
of
happy
art.
that we could leave it all in place. But then it's also fantastic for the vendors, right? Like they're
Sure.
they're not actually then really investing anything because they're actually getting
They made a
paid for
sale.
everything. It's
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
So something like window treatments was really, really difficult because, like you said, it's a huge, huge investment for custom window treatments. A lot of those windows were like 9, 10 feet
I'm sure
tall,
I can
right? They were
imagine.
huge, huge
6,000
windows.
square foot home. It's like,
It's, yeah.
100,000 grand into
Hmm.
window treatments. Like, I
Yeah.
know it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what we had to do was, first of all, we partnered with a couple of different places. And so, for instance, Tebow, the
Hmm.
fabric company,
Hmm.
they were willing to sort of sponsor us for 2 bedrooms
Okay.
worth of fabrics, right?
But
So we
fabric, you
had
still got to get fabrication and measuring and
exactly,
installation.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And so when we partnered with, we eventually partnered with City Shade
Okay.
for window treatments, and
Okay.
that was fantastic. Except that, of course, they want to use their own fabrics, right? Like that,
Oh,
that would for them, it made more sense because then they could, that this is actually a product that you can buy versus it being like a
oh. But
fully
see,
custom.
Showhouse, you got to know it's going to be custom. Come on.
Well,
Just saying.
yes, but also, then also we only could from Tebow was only doing for 2
Two
rooms,
rooms.
right?
Right.
So
Right.
we would then have to actually buy. I think probably City Shade possibly would have done some custom, but in reality, what ended up happening was that we actually partnered with a local Nashville-based custom window treatment company, Window Expressions. They made all the window treatments for the custom fabric from
Nice.
Tebow. This is so much to coordinate,
Oh,
LuAnn.
yeah.
You
I,
have
I,
no
I
idea
know it.
how many vendors we had to coordinate. So it was like sort of like bringing everybody together to make this beautiful thing happen, but it was a lot to coordinate. So we had City Shade for window treatments that were the rest of the house, and then we worked with Horizons as well for all the
Mm.
natural wood.
Mm-hmm.
But that also needed to be installed, right?
Yep.
Because Horizons doesn't install, and so we had to. So we had a very small stipend as well from the builder, to have some things installed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we had, so we just had to figure it out. We had to put it
It's
all
crazy.
together and use our small budget towards all those kind of things. And things like vintage furniture, for instance, like Cherish was amazing and gave us a small stipend. They don't typically get involved with show houses because I would imagine, because they didn't say this, but I would imagine it's because they are not sort of like the seller,
Right. They don't own
they're
it,
they're
right?
they're a
They're the in
marketplace.
between.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so but they did give us this a donation, and that was fantastic towards purchasing vintage pieces because I love doing vintage as much as possible. But no small vintage seller is going to be like, yeah, here's $10,000, $20,000 worth of vintage furniture to
Right.
put out. And by the way, the house opened in August and closed in December. So we're not saying like, hey, can you
It's going to
loan
be
us
on just,
something for a week? We're saying,
yes.
hey, can you loan us something for like 5 months?
Right. It's coming off your
With
floor. You're not going to make
thousands and
any revenue off
thousands
it.
of
Yeah.
people walking across it, dealing with it, touching it, like who knows what
Yes.
sort of how it's going to come back to you,
Yeah.
right? But
Yes.
hopefully the house sells and hopefully it sells furnished, but there's
Right.
none of
But
that
there's
can
no
be
guarantee.
guaranteed.
The vendors
No,
that you talk to don't have that guarantee.
right.
So here's the thing. What I am hearing is, like you said a couple of times, just from the design standpoint, putting together a new build like that is a massive undertaking.
Yes.
Then you are now like reverse engineering it with the vendors that are happy to show up. It's not like you're just out there like that would be a great rug. It's like, you know what I'm saying? It's like you have to now reverse engineer and still maintain the integrity of your design.
Right.
Um, and then the actual execution of it. Like, so I'm like just the planning of it, because
Yes.
what I'm hearing in my mind is okay, so here you are, you may be in negotiations with the rug place and, or Lee, whoever it is, whatever was doing whatever thing. But, that might not be one phone call and done, or it might be one phone call and, okay, we'll talk about it, but, give me your wish list. And then it could be yes, no, maybe on a wish list. But meanwhile, you're making decisions on the fabric that Tebow is donating on the fabric of and then like they can't do it or they won't do it. And it just sounds like chaotic to me,
Yeah.
actually.
It
Really.
kind of was. So I just realized I didn't answer your question from earlier when you said what's the ROI for the vendors. The
Mm.
ROI for the vendors is that Southern Living magazine, and I don't work for them, but they are one of the largest magazines in terms of subscriptions. And in fact, I think in like in the shelter magazines that they possibly are the largest. They have such a wide reach that once you kind of look at the difference between them and let's say like Architectural Digest or other shelter magazines, that they're so far beyond all of that, that their
Oh.
reach, once you kind of, they put together like a sponsorship package for us that we could use to try to convince
Oh.
people, because a lot of vendors, so we as a company, we don't really, we try to be sustainable, right? We try to support small businesses. So
Mm.
the smaller businesses obviously don't have the dollars to put towards
Get
doing a show
into.
house, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like a company like Lee is huge and they have some dollars to put towards it. But a lot of the other vendors that we work with regularly just didn't have the dollars to put towards it. And so it was a lot for us to have to like convince them of why they should, put money towards this.
Right.
You small company, never done anything like this before. We also had a home gym and I didn't just want to throw like regular whatever equipment in there. So we worked with this company out of England actually, and they shipped all of this beautiful wood, like oak and stainless steel gym equipment
Whoa.
from England, because they were
Whoa.
actually they were opening they have a location in Florida too. So
So they want to hit the
it
US
was,
market.
yeah,
They're like,
exactly.
"This
And
is how we
so
do it, Southern Living. This is
yeah,
how we do
yeah. But it was
it."
it was a beautiful, beautiful gym with all like wood gym equipment because again, that was part of our sustainability and our biophilic
Yeah.
design. So I made it way more difficult than it probably needed to be because of like how we
Your
like to do
standards,
business. So
your
yeah, we didn't
vision.
we didn't want to just have a brand in there because we knew that they would just give us pots of money and make it easy, right? Like
Yeah.
we had over 40 vendors in that house because we wanted to make sure that we were still representing small brands, and sustainable brands and that sort of thing. So it's all the companies that we always work with that, thank goodness, that
Mm.
participated with us, and that was amazing. The ROI for them is to be involved with such a big company,
Mm.
like Southern Living is. Their Instagram alone is I think 2.8 million
Whoa.
subscribers or something like
Whoa.
that. So they're substantial, and their subscriber base to the magazine is huge.
So that I get. That part I get. But what I was questioning was, what is the viewpoint? What and you're there's probably a logical answer, but I'm not seeing the through line. What is the reason why Southern Living does it as one designer as opposed to multiple? Like what's that aspect for them? Because ultimately they end up with a beautiful home. Now, I guess the first thing I'm going to say is, ah, I hear it. I just got it because this is being built to be sold. And if you are doing 25 designers, you have a hodgepodge and somebody's got like, the Wild West and somebody's got vintage and somebody's got Florida design and somebody's got coastal. Okay, I heard it. They need it to be a cohesive home to sell. Gotcha.
Exactly.
Okay, answer my own
Exactly.
question.
And it makes complete sense. Like
Yeah,
once you're actually in the home, that you can walk from room to room and, I can say, oh, we did this reeded detail. Like I designed some sconces for the primary bathroom and we did this beautiful reeded glass. And we have that same reeded glass in the kitchen and the
yeah,
glass front, and we did it on the side of this custom cabinetry. And so like you can have those details and I can have like a
flowing.
color palette that is
Yeah,
based on, because the house was coming out in the fall, like sort of August, September in the magazine, September issue of the magazine. So we kind of went with like a bit of a fall palette of that area. And then that color palette went throughout the entire house.
right.
And
It's
so
not
there's a
disjointed.
beautiful consistency
Yeah.
when you're walking from room to room. And yeah, the idea is for it to sell, but I think also it's a good representation for all the brands
Mm,
that you could see like, yes, you could actually do your entire house with one lighting manufacturer. I'll tell you, when they
yes.
first told me that, and I've told them this before, they know that I love them. So, but they had said, Regina Andrew was like, I told them, well, they told me you have to obviously use Regina Andrew for the whole inside of the house. And I was just like, wait, we don't use one brand of anything throughout the entire house. And as a designer, you want to do the best for the project. You don't want to
Right.
be like, well, I have to use this product throughout the whole house. That's a lot of light fixtures. It's a
That sure
lot of
is.
rooms, right? And
Yes.
so I was just like, I don't know how I'm going to do that. That's going to be really
Can we
difficult. But
negotiate this one point here?
I know. I was just like, so nothing. They're like, and they jokingly said, not even like candles, like no other light source. It has to be, they don't want you to bring in like vintage lighting because that's what they're paying for, like they
Yes.
are the sponsor of the house. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to figure it out. And I did, we did as a team. And that was really amazing. And I've told them, I didn't feel like we had to compromise at all. Thank goodness
Oh,
we were
see.
able to figure it out. And that's the biggest thing. You do not want to have to compromise your design because of the relationships that are part of the opportunity.
Mm. Well, I think that also is a testament to your creativity. We don't talk about that part of it on this show a lot, but that's digging deep. It's looking and seeing and figuring out. And it also is, I also imagine that there's a lot of like establishing the vision to begin with, because I can imagine if you've not ever had to put yourself in a box for one lighting vendor. To me, my thought goes to, all right, I've probably used them before. I probably like them, but let me get a scope of their whole product line so that I don't like start with these two things here and then like the fourth room over, there's nothing. Like, because to your point, you want a flow, you want a consistency. So that's another layer. Like you can
And
design the light for the fifth room when you get to the fifth room, but not if you
yep.
could only use one vendor, right?
Well, and that's the problem too, is that I again always make life more difficult for myself, and I don't want to repeat lights.
Right.
So I don't want to have, so
Right.
there were a couple of repeats. If anybody's seen the house, you're gonna be like, I know that you repeated a couple of them, but we did because it was the best fit for the room. But then also, they said to me in the beginning, do you want to design some lighting? And I said, well,
Oh.
obviously I do. I'm a designer. Of course, that's an amazing opportunity. So I actually designed 3 different light fixtures, and so it was really amazing to have that
While you were
opportunity
doing all this other stuff,
so
spinning
I
16
know, right?
plates in
That's
the
what I'm
air.
talking about.
Come
I
on,
made it
Laura.
more difficult for myself because they said, "Do you want to?" And I said, "If not now, when?" Like lighting
Right.
designers don't just walk up to you on the street and say like, "Hey, do you want to have a custom collection? Do you want to design some lighting?" So, and we designed custom furniture as well. So Grote House partnered with us, and that was a partnership that I brought in because I'd worked with them. Well, they make furniture for us. They've done that before as a for private clients, but we also worked with them for the House Beautiful whole home, and so I had them come in and do some beautiful walnut countertops in the laundry room. But then he was like, "Do you want to design some furniture?" I'm like, I want to design some furniture. So did the dining room table, did some bistro tables in the lower level, did a console table in the entry, and did the desk in the study as well. So it was amazing.
Wow.
They were such great partners. I love them. They know
Now,
it.
are these all pieces that are now a part of their line and
Hmm.
other designers
No,
can
no,
go
no.
buy them?
No, because
No.
the Grote House isn't really a furniture company.
Oh, it's custom one off every time.
They will repeat designs. If somebody said that they wanted to buy that dining table that I designed, they would absolutely do that. Um, but it's not they're not like a Lee Industries type of
Right. A
furniture
showroom.
company where
Right.
they're just like constantly spitting out. They mostly do wood, like solid wood countertops and materials that would projects that would require wood surfacing and that sort of thing.
Gotcha.
And they do furniture as well.
And then how about the Regina Andrews? Is that something where those fixtures are part of their line
They
now?
are
Or
now in their line. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
ah. So in the middle of all this, you had to like negotiate a licensing deal too. Not only design
Well,
the lighting, but you had to do the legal of that.
yes. So, well, we didn't actually negotiate anything with the licensing with them. It was, I think, just because they're part of so Southern Living actually has like a collection with Regina Andrew. So
Gotcha.
I
So
think
it
they were kind
becomes
of like
part of
part of
that.
that,
Okay.
possibly. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, good. These are all like things who would think of these things, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So not that we can't go back more to the experience of doing this, but I'm now also curious, like, do we just look at all of our Laura Hodges Studio private clients and say, see you in a year? I mean,
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
right? Like you have
Well,
to run a design firm while you
mhm.
do this. And the thing is, like, what I know is, like I said, I mentioned I've been part of show houses many times over the years. And usually it's, it starts in February, it launches in May, and it's up for a month and you're done. And it isn't the level of like, let's figure out which way the front door is going to face and
Yeah.
how big should the closet be? Like, it's not that. And so even that truncated 4 to 5 months of a typical show house is a challenge for a designer to keep their private clients rolling, okay? Or to not neglect building a pipeline. Even if you have a hiatus there in clients, you have to have a pipeline ready to get going. But
Exactly.
this was not 3 or 4 months. I don't, doesn't
No,
sound like.
no, it wasn't. We were approached. I mean, we were talking about it probably May of the year before. So it was last year, so 2022. But in reality, we didn't really get the design plans until about, we started to get some kind of design plans in September of that year, so in September 2022. And then we really didn't get like workable, like, okay, now go start designing the home, probably till about late October, November. And then we had to present all the design plans for the entire house by, I still, it's in my head, February 21st. That'll be forever ingrained in my brain. 54 pages of design boards that I had to present via Zoom to the edit staff, Sid and his team over there, who I will
Whoa.
say were absolutely amazing because they didn't change a thing.
Whoa.
They were just like, do it.
Wow.
So, and it was so incredible to have that level of just trust and support. It made everything so much easier and so much more worthwhile because you're like, if it was a difficult struggle of like, well, we'd really like you to do
Yeah, but
this and
you do
this brand really wants X, Y, and Z to be shown. We didn't have any of that. Like we
Oh.
had to use certain brands. Sorry, that's my cat.
It's
Tried to
okay.
keep it quiet, but
That's okay.
um, we had to use some certain brands here and there, but like I said, on the interiors, it was a good thing not to be limited, but also then like a challenging thing to not be limited because you're like, oh gosh, now I have to be a salesperson and figure this out, and like promise your soul to people of like we will do Instagram reels and we'll do stories and we'll post and we'll do this and that and the other to like every different vendor just to get like one thing.
Yes.
So
So, what did you do with your private clients during this time? Because I got to believe you're not getting paid to do this during this period of time. Like we know you're going to have the same ROI. You're going to blow up. You're going to be on this platform with 2 million, followers, and there's the back end, just like there is for each of your vendors. But we got to keep the lights on, and we've got
right.
to not abandon our pipeline. So how large is your team? Was it something that you divided design work out, or did you really just stage it and just look at people and say, love you, I'll be back in, April, or what did you do?
Yeah. So I work with my husband, Tim. And at the time, there was probably six of us all together because we also have a shop, right? And so we
Mhm.
had the way we positioned our shop manager position is that they are shop, but also do order management. So
For
they'll
the
be
private
called,
clients.
yes.
So
So
they
they're called,
handle the retail, but part of their thing is the procurement and the ordering,
yeah.
the expediting. Gotcha.
Right, exactly. And so they work with Tim on that. So Tim is our like operations manager basically. He does all the stuff that you would want him to do. Like
Yes. All the things we don't want to do.
yes. But I mean you LuAnn would want him to do. Like making
Yes.
sure
Oh,
that
he's the
everything is
guy. He's
running.
good at it.
He's the back end. So of
Yeah.
everything he makes sure that we are actually running a successful business, right?
Oh,
I do all the design stuff on the front end and most of the marketing as well. We kind of work together on the growth of the company, right? And when it comes to the shop, this was also a really good opportunity for our shop as well, because then we could style the whole house with everything from Domain, right? So
wow.
that was like, obviously, we're going to do that. Like, obviously, it doesn't make any sense to put other people's things in there when we have a shop. So here
Right.
and there, we use some vintage pieces. We use some decor also from Regina Andrew, but for the most part, the entire house is styled with products from our shop Domain. So
Wow.
that was another side opportunity. But yeah, in terms of the logistics of it, Tim and his team were the go-to for like once it was designed, and we had specification sheets for like literally every single thing, which we would do with every project, but it felt like even more with this project because there was a limit to how much people were willing to donate, right? So with any other project, a private, client, we could buy a bunch of things from one vendor
Mm,
because why not? Like the client's paying for it, right? But
right.
with this, it's like they would say, "Oh, we'll donate up to this dollar amount." So then you're like, "Okay, great. Now I got to go and get to somebody else for the rest of it, or five other people for the rest of this category." So things like, we had to just have specs on everything: plumbing, tile, hardwired lighting, all that kind of stuff. And then
That's
just literally have
massive.
order sheets for every single, because then we also have to figure out how we're going to get it back to them. We have to figure out the logistics to get it. There was a receiving warehouse that Southern Living kind of like hired, basically. They sourced it and said, okay, ship everything here. But we still handled all the logistics of shipping everything. So
Sure.
Summer Classics, for instance, was the vendor for exterior furnishings. And so we actually put all of their furniture also in the party barn, because I'm like, well, we can open up the doors and look, it's also part of the exterior, right? So,
Right, right,
and
right.
they were very generous, and I think happy, because it all stayed with the house. But they donated a lot of furniture for that house, front of the house, back of the house, huge amounts of area that had to have furnishings, from chaises at the pool to round like dining tables and lounges and all this kind of stuff. Tons of furniture from Summer Classics. But again, we had to figure out all the logistics, working with them, between, obviously, you're choosing all the fabrics and finishes and that sort of thing, but then also getting it from point A to point B, dealing with back orders and or changes of orders, because because, by the way, they're donating all this, so we can't really be like, we have to have this by a certain date. You have to be like, cool, is it coming? Thank you so
Please
much,
and
we love
thank
you.
you. Please and thank you.
So if they said something's out of stock, we need to replace it, and we're like, okay, what
Okay,
are we
no
what
problem.
can we replace it with? So you just have to
That's
be,
no
obviously,
problem.
always very appreciative and grateful for everything, and you can't like be like, oh gosh, we have to have this chair, this,
Yeah,
we have to be flexible. So, but yes, Tim and his team were how we were able to do that. I never
that's
would have been able
incredible.
to on our own handle all that. No.
And so is part of it like when somebody like Summer Classics is donating, 50 pieces of furniture, is it inherent in the agreement that their ship to and their like crating and ship back costs are on them also? Like you're not having to,
That we no we Laura Hodges Studio didn't have to eat any of those costs. For the most part, the vendors actually
they
would
have to go in
pay
knowing that
for that.
that's on their
Yes,
plate.
yes,
And
yes,
most of them, as you said, 99% or whatever got lucky and were able to leave
yeah,
it, but they have to,
yeah,
that's part of the thing. Like that's a big expense. We all know what
yeah,
freight and shipping is
yeah,
and crating it
exactly.
back up again.
Yes.
So they have to be
Yeah, so like Paragon Studio, for instance, they were the company who loaned us all of the gym equipment.
Mm,
They took on that to ship it from England,
yeah,
right? And then shipped it from Nashville down to their show house in Florida.
right.
So,
Okay. Okay.
yep.
So the question now is now I've asked you twice, you haven't quite answered me. Did you maintain private clients
Oh,
during
yes,
this?
sorry.
Okay,
I should
that's
answer that.
okay. I was like,
Um,
let's get to it.
yes. Yes, we did. Here's the thing. I'm going to answer your question, but I just want to give you the caveat of, when we decided to do this, when I said yes to Sid on that phone call, because he was like, do you want to think about it? And I'm like, I'm good. I want to do it, because I knew that it was going to be an experience where I could just do what I felt was right for the entire house. And that is crazy. Like the
Yeah.
opportunity to do an entire house with no client saying that they're,
Yes.
allergic to wool or that they have kids, and
It's
everything
the
has to be
dream. It's the
bulletproof,
dream, right?
all this kind of stuff. So I was just like, this is a fantastic experience. But then once I decided that we were going to do it, or not I decided, but as a team, we decided that we were going to do it. It's like, okay, well, then we're going to do this,
Yeah.
right? So we can't be like, well, if we'd had more time, if we didn't have all these clients, if we decided this and that and the other,
Mm,
I wanted to just say, we're going to do it, and we're going to
love
do
it.
our very, very best. So from day one, we decided we're going to style the whole home with domain product, whatever that costs. We're going to make sure that we have all, like, why would we have somebody else's plates in the kitchen? We have plates. They should be our plates, right?
Mm,
And so any moment like that, we wanted to take advantage of. When Regina Andrew and Grow House said, do you want to design custom pieces? And I said, yes, it's going to make life harder, but we're going to do that, because this is an opportunity that we're never going to have again, because Southern Living is the only company that does a whole house.
they don't call every month and say, "Are you sure?" It's
Yeah,
like, "We
exactly.
ask, you say
So
yes
we're
or
doing
no."
it. We're doing it. So with that in mind, but we still had to take on projects. We still had other design clients
Mhm,
happening, and I also wanted to make sure that they knew that they were just as important as they've
mhm.
ever been, right? So we're like, if we're going to do this, we have to know that we are going to be working harder than normal longer hours here and there than normal, but we are also going to like enjoy this as much as possible and remember that this is a great gift that we've been given, and we're not going to hopefully get too stressed out. None of that happened. I was super stressed out the whole time, but we tried
You didn't
to
complain
remind.
about it though.
We didn't. I
You didn't
don't think that
complain
we
about it.
stressed out our staff.
Yeah.
I would like to maybe ask them and confirm, but they're still here.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I
Nobody
think
quit.
it's okay. Um, but it was such a fantastic opportunity that I said, we obviously still need to have clients. We had fewer clients. We didn't take on as many
Right. Right. Right.
projects
The
at
same
that
pipeline.
time,
Hmm.
but we kind of just said, okay, we can start at X date instead of being able to start right now. We'll need another month or two. Is that okay? And it was okay,
Hmm.
and yes, that's not great for our, for our income, but we had to have the long view of we're going to be creating something where we don't photograph every single project, right? And so if you photographed every single project, you would have a portfolio of amazing things not every single project is exactly what you want it to be,
Right.
right?
Right.
So this was an opportunity that I knew going into it, that if we
Mm.
designed every single room in this entire house
Wow.
to the nines, that we could have photography for what we would do ideally in any project ever for every single room of the house. Like there's
Whoa.
literally every single room. There's a
Right.
butler's pantry and there's powder rooms and there's a kid's room and a guest room and a primary bedroom and primary
And a
bathroom and a
party
closet,
barn.
a party barn, right? So, and we even created, we LuAnn, there's a recording studio
Whoa.
because it's Nashville, right? So
Right. Of
we have a whole
course.
the whole lower level we positioned as a music lounge. So there's a
Wow.
piano and there's a billiards table. I mean, it's really a beautiful home. Obviously, I love it, but it's nice to be able to, like, I don't feel like we need to photograph anything for a while. We're good. Like we just have so
Yes.
much great photography from that whole project. And that's, but I told Sid recently that it's so far beyond what I thought it was going to be. There's a real sense of personal accomplishment and
Mm.
satisfaction from having created and done this whole thing. Because, like you said, it's not just the design, it's the execution of it. And I
Yes.
can say without a doubt that every single room in that entire house, even the pantry, we had these beautiful custom made brass rod system with like walnut shelves. It's absolutely stunning. And Mary and Patrick were so gracious in allowing me to design all the interior elements, and we worked with Lake and Land on so many of the interior architectural details and that sort of thing. It was just a great team effort, and it was a
Wow.
great opportunity. One of the overarching ideas for me with the Idea House was to make sure that the entire design plan for the whole house was very welcoming and accessible for as wide a range of people as we could possibly do. So I wanted to make sure myself, I'm of mixed race, and half my family is black, half my family is white. I grew up, originally from England as well, so I have a lot of different sort of ideas in terms of what makes a home and how you want to feel and how you want to have your culture reflected in the home, right? And I think that a lot of the main magazines, there's a certain sort of look that you see a lot, and then there's a lot of things that are not sort of reflected. African culture, um, Middle Eastern culture, Far Eastern culture, like that sort of thing. So I really wanted to make sure that we were using a lot of different design ideas. So whether it was being inspired by Ghanaian headrests for the console and the entry, or combining the design details of Malian furniture with, sort of Regency or colonial design styles in the cabinetry and in the custom desk that I designed and the custom dining table that I designed. I really wanted to just make sure that there were things throughout the house that kind of brought everything together.
That it felt
In
welcoming to
Yeah,
all races and
yes.
diversity and
Yes,
ethnicities.
and
It
that
wasn't
there,
just like
and it
it
wasn't
looked
just
like a
like, oh,
certain.
here's African baskets on the wall and here's a bunch of African masks. Not on the nose stuff like that, but
Right, not stereotypical
yeah,
things.
exactly. But like one of the main pieces in the living room, for instance, is this beautiful painting that I absolutely adore by Henry Owasa Tanner, and it's the banjo lesson, and all the colors throughout the whole house are represented in there. So besides being inspired by nature, I was actually fully inspired for the color palette by this painting. The use of light and the use of color and the sort of like emotional connection in the painting. I wanted to make sure that that was represented in the house.
Mm. I don't know. Did you listen to the episode with Jessica Bantam that she was on in the fall? Because I know you listened to the show, but she wrote a book, and I'm going to forget the name of it on the fly here. But the idea was it's designed for diversity, and that's we'll put the book in the show notes. But I read her book, and her mission is to have every designer do just what you did. You
Mm,
know, make it so that you, a welcoming, you used it right, so that any person that walks through feels welcome. They're not like just went into this altered universe of some other ethnicity or race or backgrounds place. And I have to
right,
stand here as an
right,
outsider and think,
right.
well, this is objectively beautiful, but I don't
But I
feel
don't,
comfortable
yeah,
here.
exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And I didn't want it to be, as a Black designer, I didn't want it to be like, oh, well, clearly a Black designer designed this home because all the artwork is by Black designers. But I did want to make sure that there was a really good representation of that.
Right.
And so, for instance, in the recording studio in the lower level, we have this whole wall of amazing photographs, candid photographs of artists and musicians who were very important to the Nashville area. But I very specifically have an even amount
Yes.
of
Not
black
only
and white.
white people and not
So
only Black
country,
people. Right. Right.
everybody from Elvis and Dolly Parton to the Fisk Jubilee Singers and Muddy
Yes.
Waters and like
Yes.
everybody who was possibly part of that music
Framing
scene,
this.
because the
Right.
music scene of Nashville is so diverse, but you don't really hear of Black country music stars, right? There are plenty, but you don't hear of that, right? And so combining the sort of like, in my head, I designed the space thinking that the couple who lived there would be a jazz singer and a country singer, that they were married and that they kind of combined these two amazing worlds. He's white, she's Black, or it could be the other way around. But either way, that they had this sort of multicultural experience. And I loved being able to sort of like have that in there. I don't think it's super obvious. I think that if you're paying attention, maybe it is obvious. But to me, I went to a lot of artists in the Black Artists and Designers Guild and I said, do you want to be part of the Showhouse? And they loved it. And we chose pieces that were not like, a huge celebration of blackness in like on the face of it, but there was a celebration in the story. And so if you read
Yes.
about that piece, you would know that that's what they were inspired by. And it's really amazing. There's layers and layers of details throughout the house like that.
Well, isn't that the best design? I don't care
I
what
think so.
aspect of it
I think so.
that we're talking about, that it's not in your face. Like this isn't the most amazing sofa ever lived on the entire world, right? It's like every single piece in the room isn't the most amazing piece, right?
Yes,
Like there is a theme, and to your point, in everything we do, it's the story behind the things, it's the meaning, it's the relationships, it's all of it. But it is, and it does begin with any one of us being able to feel comfortable in the space and not
exactly.
feel excluded. Like, I don't
Yes.
feel happy here,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Amazing. I mean, thinking about all that you did to just execute it and then to put this thoughtful additional layer of creativity and heart and soul into it is just even more mad respect for you. Like,
Thank
my
you.
goodness, lady, my goodness.
Thank you. Well, part of it always for me is that as a Black designer, I always want other people who are coming up behind me, younger designers that look like me, or even if they're another race that isn't as well represented in the industry, that they're like, oh my gosh, this is a huge platform and she did it, right? And she
Yes.
she wasn't just like, oh, pigeonholed as being a Black designer and therefore this is what she's going to do. Southern Living gave me this fantastic platform and opportunity to do what I thought was best in this home. They trusted me with that. And therefore, they could trust anybody with that. And we're all worthy of that opportunity.
Love it. I love it. What I keep hearing in my head, Laura, is the execution, how
Yeah.
well you executed it. It's clear because there are a lot of, moving parts in that. And I love the intention that you started it with. It's like understanding the opportunity that was in front of you, but taking it the step further and saying, okay, so how in our business will we leverage this opportunity? Let's like use our accessories and our things in the home and figuring that out. And then, understanding, like, literally, I'm sure that part of it, like you just said there, is like, okay, so our income is going to drop during this period, but we're probably going to save 20 grand on interior photography over the next 2 years. So
Exactly.
there's a
Exactly.
mitigating factor there, right? It's like It's not like I'm not bringing it in, but like Vinny always says, it's not always what I make, it's what I don't spend, right?
That's true. That's true. And there were
Right?
opportunities as well to kind of show our expertise in
Mm,
so many different ways that were so unusual. Like we were able to show, I also designed a custom bed for the guest bedroom made by Reed Classics, and
mm.
that was a fantastic opportunity. But then we did like an upholstered headboard that we attached with like little leather straps on the side, and we did that. Like we made it ourselves because we had an upholsterer to make the headboard, but we didn't have anybody to actually like, make those leather straps and do all that. So we did that, right? We upholstered the walls in the kids' bedroom with the Tebow fabric with a cork behind it. Like we did all these cork panels, and then we upholstered it with the fabric so it can be like a little pin board for the kids, but it's also
Oh,
beautiful even if you don't use it as a pin board. It's just like these upholstered panels. But we did that. Like we stuck up
wow.
the cork, we put the fabric on top. So we're able to record all these wonderful moments people can take, because it is meant to be an idea house, that we
Sure.
could then say to our followers or audience kind of thing, here's some ideas that you can have even if you don't have the budget to hire somebody. Look, we just did it. If I can
Yeah,
do it, you can
yeah,
do it, kind of thing,
yeah.
so
I love it. I love it. I am like, you know what I just about to say? I'm so proud of you. I really I'm so proud of you. I am. I mean, like, I had nothing to do
thank
with it, but
you.
I'm so proud of
Oh,
you. I
thank
just,
you.
and I think that before I let you go, just like 5 seconds on the cautionary tale of we started with being prepared to be lucky. We started with having some confidence to say yes to a major opportunity and minor opportunities when they present to us. But this is not for the meek of heart what you just did, Laura.
No.
This is not doing even just a regular show house, which is a monumental project to do even just one room in a show house. And so, I feel like there's almost a moment of be careful what you wish for. And I don't want to be on a down note with it. That is not my intent whatsoever. But it is really to just stress it's clear to me in just 40 minutes how much thought you and Tim and the rest of your team put into this at every step of the way. It was not just like, hey, we got this. It like throw the spaghetti up. I'm sure it'll be fine. Like there's a lot of things we can do in life like that. We could just show up and be like, it'll be fine. I got this. This isn't one of them. The stakes
Well,
are too
show
high.
houses show houses always have lot of opportunities built into them, but I do think that when you're doing something like this, when you're investing so much of your own time and resources into doing it, I just always want to sit down and think, what I think in 5 years or even next year, look back on this and think, that was the best opportunity to do this. Why didn't we do this? Why didn't we think of this? Is there anything like how we squeeze this, for as
Yes.
much as possible? And we were at the time when we first started looking at designing the house, we were in talks with Unique Kitchens and Bath to design a kitchen cabinetry line. And
Mm.
so all of the cabinetry in the whole house is our cabinetry line, from the
Oh.
kitchens to the bathrooms and everywhere. It's
Oh my
all from
God.
our collection and our custom colors and our custom design profiles. So the house was like, well, obviously that's something that we need to incorporate. So then we had to make sure that it was all
You
that
got
that
it done.
whole collection was designed. By the way, I designed that collection while I was also designing the house, like making life always way more difficult. But
I
yeah, just
can't
thinking
imagine
through
how
like what are
organized you are.
oh gosh, we had to be. Well, we had to be. I was like, if
Yes.
we are not meticulous about this, we're going to mess it up. We have to
Yes.
be very, very careful all the way through. And everybody's relying on us, right? Like we're kind of like the conductor of this whole orchestra here of making sure that everybody's happy. Southern Living is happy. The builders are happy. The architects are happy with what we do with their initial vision on the space. And all the vendors are happy that we are presenting their product in a way that they're also happy with. So we're just like constantly trying to make everybody happy the whole time. And that obviously that we're not hopefully compromising our design.
Well,
So I
and
will
you
say,
too,
yeah,
right? Making sure that
exactly. Yeah,
you're doing it for the right reasons, like
yeah,
you said, like what is my opportunity here?
yeah,
So that means you're
yeah,
going to have to show up and make sure you maximize it,
yeah.
right?
And so even if you'll always, there probably are a lot more opportunities than just what seems to be the main opportunity, which is to do the
Mm.
house, right? Then
Mhm.
we thought, okay, what else can we do? We have a shop. We need to promote the shop. we can come up, we're talking about coming up with a cabinetry line. Now, yes, the cabinetry line probably would have was going to happen anyway, but then the timeline moved up because I thought, well, if we can design it faster, we can get it in the show house faster. And so, all those kind of things. It was just like, it's going to make life harder for right now, but this is an opportunity. It's way harder if you design custom lighting than just to pick out what's already there. It's way harder to design custom furniture than just to pick what's already there. But and then things like the music studio, for instance, I decided to put up this beautiful sisal material on the walls. It was from Fiberworks. And it was such a pain to figure out who was going to install it, because it's not like wallpaper. It's really thick and it has to be installed by only these few people in the whole world who can do it. And so that was an extra expense that we weren't expecting. And we're like, how are we going to figure this out? But it has to be, because it's sound absorbing. And how perfect is that? It's beautiful, but it also absorbs sound. It's a perfect idea for a recording studio. I was just like, we have to make it work. And I could have just been like, no, just paint the walls. We're good.
Well, right, because you could have then just say, Showhouse, stop it. Don't worry about it. But like, you were holding your values and holding your vision.
Yeah, exactly.
I have one last question before I let you go.
Okay.
I know that they, look, you had carte blanche on designing. You said that was one of the big attractors to it. But were the owners involved at all? Were they like walking through, and even if they were like with their mouth shut going, I love that, I don't love that, even if they couldn't share it, or did they not see it till the reveal?
So the owners didn't buy the house until about August. So they didn't even see the house.
Okay.
Nobody saw the house until it was done.
Till it was
and actually
done.
They bought it before it went on tours. So the realtor was able to give tours of the house before it opened to tours to see if anybody wanted to buy it.
Gotcha.
And this couple who had been looking for a house for a few years, they like saw it and just were like, yeah, we want it. So they bought it. Almost, as I said, completely fully furnished. And then it opened for tours. And so then people were walking through their house. But no, they had nothing to do. Don't ruin my house.
Don't make them get your shoes off.
I know, they had nothing to do. I've never met them. So
gotcha.
All I can tell you is that they have good taste.
Yeah, of course. That's awesome. I love it. I love it. Well, I am just so happy for you. And you certainly have worked so hard, not only to get to that spot, but it's very clear the work that you and Tim and your team put in to manage such a complex project. And I just wrote down in my notes here, she didn't do it good enough. Every single part of it, you figured out the way that it really, whether it was maximizing it from a business opportunity or maximizing it from a design opportunity or just maximizing it from, I love that you said, an awareness of, let's be grateful for this. Let's enjoy this as much as we can, and remember.
And I should also just point out that when we did the House Beautiful Whole Home, they asked me to do that, and they said, would you like to be involved? And we were really, really busy at the time. And I said, sure. What are the rooms? And she's like, oh, we want you to do the home office. And I was like, oh, well, thank goodness, actually, because the home office is probably like the least looked at room. That way we can do it. We can be involved because you don't say no to House Beautiful. But also just like, oh my gosh.
It's not like the primary bedroom or the kitchen
like
or
the
something
living room,
really.
Right?
Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
And so we went into it thinking like, we're going to do it. We're going to do our best work, but nobody's really going to probably care too much about it. So let's do our best work. And I'm sure it'll just be a lovely space and everybody will be like, oh, that's lovely, right? But then they were like, they loved it and they put it on the cover. So new learning is that low expectations are great. But also just, I would always, if you are going to do a show house, go into it with some realistic understanding that your work may be more than just this room. This can be your opportunity. Because I think sometimes when we're investing our own money into something that you kind of get cheap about certain things, maybe, I don't know, I do. I just think like, doesn't it have to be that amazing? Or like, can we get this thing instead? And so I would just do it as if you were designing somebody's actual home. And the great thing about the Southern Living Idea House, I think a lot of people were attracted to the fact that it was still a welcoming, livable house.
You could picture living in it.
It really looked like a show house. So we didn't kind of like go above and beyond and being like, it's, everything's like huge and amazing. Well, I think it was amazing, but we didn't kind of treat it like this over the top exaggerated version of ourselves. We designed it as if we were designing it for somebody's home who just didn't have an opinion on anything.
Who just happen to have the best taste ever.
Yeah. So I think just, taking advantage of every opportunity that's possibly available. And then just, if you're going to do it like 110%.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I'm just so literally thrilled for you. And I
Thank you.
just amazing, 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 amazing. And I know that you've worked hard to deserve it and to earn it. And it's, it's the proof is in it. So thank you so much for sharing all that with us, Laura.
Thank you, LuAnn. I appreciate it. You're so kind. I love it. Thank you so much.
Can you fathom this amount of work and the expertise and the experience and the effort and the attention to detail that Laura needed to deliver to do this well? I mean, it honestly boggles my mind. I had respect for Laura before this, knowing her through the years, but this just exponentially exploded my mad respect for Laura. And not because the home turned out beautifully, although that is significant and noteworthy and not to be underestimated because it did turn out insanely gorgeous, but because of her strategic thinking, her execution, her commitment to leveraging more than just the beautiful design outcome. That's her differentiator here. Do you see that? Did you hear that? Because that's the big aha, right? Laura had to become a master negotiator, salesperson, dream weaver to forge connections and solicit donations right and left to make this project possible. And it's one thing doing it for a room. I've worked side by side with many designers throughout the years, Layden Lewis, Charles Pavarini, Julie Leopold, and so many others that have done it for show houses. But goods and services for an entire home, holy cannoli. All right. Now, I also noticed that she probably made a great deal of sacrifice, okay? Not just in minimizing her own client load for the period of time, but also her personal life. You can imagine where that work-life balance was probably teetering a lot of times during those several months. This is what it took to execute this entire project at the level that she put out for herself. And the thing is, what I liked is, when I asked Laura what she got out of this project, yes, the experience, the connections, the marketing in the magazine, her answer was so smart. She said not only was she able to include so many items from her own retail business, like this was a goal. Like she said, I'm going in, we're doing this. We're going to have this support our retail business. But she also cognitively considered what a portfolio builder it would be, right? So yes, she knew that experience, connections, the marketing, all of that. But she had those two big, clear things in her mind, that these were going to be things that were going to be deliverables, that were going to be the rewards, that were going to be part of the ROI from this. So she set it up ahead of time. It was like, oh, and by the way, that worked out. That's what I love, the thought. And she knew being able to utilize her portfolio this way, to take it and to be able to show what she could do in so many different ways in this one project would be valuable, right? I love, love, love that she thought about the long-term ROI and how she could leverage every aspect about this project for herself. Strategy, strategy, strategy. All right. And I don't want to skim over Laura's emphasis on diversity in her design either. This was a unique opportunity for her. She was not dealing with clients who had a specific taste or vision in mind, not bound by any of the traditional parameters that you typically have on a normal project. And in some ways, that's probably almost a little scary, right? Where do you start? But she knew she wanted anybody, everybody, to feel at home in this home, to feel welcome, to feel included, and to see some element that spoke to them when they were in the home. You know, I don't talk a lot about the pretty or even the creative side of things that often, but this is something that I know will have an impact in the future of design. Jessica Bantam and I discussed being a culturally competent designer on episodes 908 and 912. She talked a lot about the need for everyone to feel at home in a space. It's something that is relevant as we collectively work towards inclusion and diversity in the interior design industry. How can you find the subtle nods, like Laura mentioned, these backstories of pieces that celebrate culture and diversity? How can you create spaces that don't isolate people, but instead welcome everyone? I think this is something we're going to hear a lot more of as time goes on. And I know very definitively that this is not a responsibility for designers of color, but for all of you to consider now. Okay? It's clear that Laura put her heart and soul into this project, and I'm so glad that we got to hear all the nitty-gritty of the undertaking. Because the truth is, it sounds like that the Showhouse might not always be the way to go. You really do have to have a strong core process in place. You have to have organization in place. You have to be able to juggle what you're doing. Even if, you're doing one room, okay? You have to juggle what's happening in your business and what's happening in that show house. You have to be ready to handle what's ever thrown at you. I mean, I've seen it. Like all of a sudden we are 3 days away from install and now a wall can't be moved or a wall has to be moved. I mean, it's bonkers, really. Okay. And you got to be able to roll with it. All right. You have to be able to maintain your client load and accommodate the space required to pause in your business so that you could do the project. Right. And you have to have the forethought to take the experience and to leverage it to maximize the ROI. So if you do find yourself with an opportunity and you think it's something you can juggle within your business, it absolutely can be worth the investment if you put the strategy to it the way Laura did. I am literally, absolutely impressed by you, Laura. Thank you so much for sharing your experience and your insights with us today. And before we wrap up, I want to make sure that you've heard about the Power Talk Friday tour being back. We are going to be in Dallas April 5th. I'm just going to say, go to powertalkfriday.com to learn more. Thank you so much for listening today. Decide to be excellent. Thank you for joining me today. This podcast is a production of LuAnn Laura, Inc. If you want to know more about me, my books, or LuAnn University, go to LuAnnLaura.com. And if you are interested in having WindowWorks help you with your next window treatment or awning project in the New York, New Jersey metro area, go to WindowWorksNJ.com to learn more. Have an excellent day.